Hello, welcome back to the channel. My name is Susan, and oh, I just lost a window here. Just one second. There we go. All right, I'm trying to I got too many things going at once here. I don't want that. Okay. Too many buttons to click. Anyway, welcome back to the channel. I hope you had a really good week. My week wasn't as busy as last week, which was nice. Getting caught up on laundry and everything from the trip. But it was still busy in other ways. And it is hot. I don't know. Let's see if this works. Look at that. Your little check pops up on the thing. I don't know how to describe it. It's so hot, it's disgusting. Here, where we are in Canada, with the humidity, it's 39 degrees Celsius. Now, I will convert that for those of you who do Fahrenheit, because I don't know off the top of my head. Let me just, I guess I'll have to do it this way. Fahrenheit to Celsius. 39. Oh, no, that's Fahrenheit. I want to do that. It's over 100 degrees. It's 102, 105. So, yikes. And there's no wind. So you step outside and you're immediately like, the humidity is just disgusting. So, this week, I did post the video of the yarn store, Witchcraft au Fil du Temps, that I visited when we were in Montreal. So that was nice. Got that up and out of the way. I am in the midst of recording the next week in the alphabet blanket. So that is coming to you this week. I've been working on a few samples. I want to show you. Oh, and other news, you probably see it right here. There goes the yarn on the floor. One sec. I got it done. This is the Sunshine and Rainbows blanket. And I went with just a simple single crochet border. I did 3 rounds of single crochet. I did not bother leveling out the ripple because it looks fine with the ripple, I think. So just a simple single crochet border. And so I'm going to be bringing this to you not necessarily this week, but within the next couple of weeks. I'm going to do up the written pattern. The pattern is super easy. It might look a little complicated, but it's not. I just noticed that my nose got burnt today when I was doing the garden stuff. So, and this measures, what does it measure? Let me move my tea here for a second. Get my measuring tape. I don't have much room here. Let me just move that tea so that does not go anywhere. All right, so we are looking with the border 36 and a half. And the width is, that was the length. 34 and a half. So 34 and a half by 36 and a half. So it's a nice baby size blanket. Not quite toddler size, but you could very easily modify this to make it whatever size you wanted. You could even make it into like a twin size or a queen size or a lapgan. Super easy. So that's going to be coming soon. So I did get that done. Now, when I made this, I used by accident 2 size. This is a 3 and this is a 4-weight yarn. Now, it did work out. Is it noticeable? No, not really. Because thinner 4-weight, slightly thicker 3-weight, they were fairly close. But one thing I will recommend is when you go to do yours, don't pull a Susan. Make sure you get the same yarn weight, just to make your life a little easier. So this was with the Lion Brand Big Scoop of Love. And I just attached the ball band back on because this is what I had left. So it's a pound of yarn. So I have more than enough here to make even 1 or 2 more. So I'm thinking, depending, because I think the yarn that I'm using for the alphabet blanket, which is also Lion Brand Pound of Love, this is in pastel green. It goes amazingly with the green in the Big Scoop. It matches identical. So depending on what I have left, I might go with I know they're not the same weight, but the Pound of Love is even more close to this. So you have a lot of that left, and I went through 2, and this is my 3rd skein of the light yellow. So not quite 2, just over 2 skeins of the yellow. But again, you get them on sale at Michael's with your coupon, you're paying next to nothing for them. So that's the Sunshine and Rainbows blanket that's going to come in your way. Now, I also, this is from my stash, so don't panic about any of these. These aren't new. As you can tell, I'm a huge fan of the Pound of Love, just for a lot of the baby stuff, as I've mentioned before. So, follow me. A little tutorial I'm going to bring to the channel coming soon too is the Sunburst Granny. Now the colors on this are kind of, there, that's a little better to get it up closer to the camera. I'm just using some stuff from my stash because what I'm doing is all the granny squares, and I'm going to make some Sunburst Granny squares because these work out to be the same size as the basic granny. And so I'm going to have some that are basic sunburst and just alternate them throughout the blanket, and we'll put them together with maybe a blanket stitch so the seams are visible. I'm not a massive fan of as jointed as you go. I like making my squares, and plus if I'm sitting outside and it's hot, that way you don't have, once you get the blanket further along, you're not worrying about a whole big blanket on top of you in the heat. So anyway, so yeah, we're going to do some of these and some basic grannies. And again, the color looks a little washed out. They all go together, so it'll work. Still haven't touched the all-in-one granny square to make the color pooling. I have learned that the Lion Brand Bundle of Love, I believe, I wrote it down here somewhere, and I want to try this too. I keep writing all these notes. Bundle of Love will color pool if you use the moth stitch. So that might be something we might try too. I like how it makes the argyle pattern. These are all my notes to do with the Sunshine and Rainbows. So I also worked this week, and this isn't something I can bring a pattern to the channel because this is a paid pattern from Kuda Fakika, Veronica Lindbergh. So I don't know if anybody's familiar with her. This is a knit pattern, and it's going to be a tank top. So there's lots of lace and design, and look at all my stitch markers to keep track of where the repeat is. So I've been working on that because I kind of wanted to have this done before we went to Montreal, but nope, didn't. Other things happened. So I've been working on this in the evenings. When there's such an intricate design, stitch markers are your friend. I posted a picture of this in one of my posts on YouTube there. When you have a pattern like this that you have to do, it's so many stitch repeats, no matter how seasoned of a knitter you are, or how advanced of a knitter you are, stitch markers are your friend. They keep your sanity, they keep you on track, and it's much easier to catch if you make a mistake when you're like, oh, I shouldn't be at the stitch marker just yet. I think I should have, 2 more stitches. Where did I go wrong? You can kind of go back. It saves you having to tank a whole bunch of stuff of your project. So that was something I was working on. So I just have to get it to length now, and I'm repeating. I kind of modified the pattern a little bit for along the bottom because I'm scared I'm going to lose my stitches here. I don't know if you can see, there are baubles. Let me just hold it. You can kind of see the baubles like along here. There's a section coming up towards the bottom that involves making hearts almost with the baubles. And I despise making baubles in knitting. Despise it. I've learned it the hard way. I've tried doing it different ways. I've tried doing it with crochet hooks. Baubles are not my friend. Flat out. So I'm kind of modifying the pattern a little bit as I'm going to compensate for there going to be the lack of baubles in that section because I'm not doing baubles. So we'll see how it turns out. I'm going to put a lifeline. And if you're not familiar with that, I do have a video on my channel about putting in a lifeline in knitting so that if for some reason something doesn't turn out the way you quite want it to, you can very easily tink back to where that lifeline is and put all those stitches back on your needle safely. So it keeps it from unraveling past that lifeline. Game changer especially for new knitters. Because if you're like, shoot, I made a mistake, and you're not familiar with how to tink or where you should pick up, especially if you're knitting in the round and there's an intricate design, if you put a lifeline, you can't pull apart past that lifeline. So you're not going to worry about dropping stitches. You're not going to worry about it. It saves a lot of work. And I've had to in the past when I was learning different lacy patterns, because I've done quite a few projects of Kuda Vakikas. The Salty Days sweater, I've made a few of those for gifts for myself. This, and there was another one I did, and I forget the name of it. And I put the lifeline in and I had to use it. So there's no shame in that because it does save you a lot of headache. It really does. One thing I'm going to say to you though, this is Lion Brand cotton. I'm pretty sure it's Lion Brand cotton. No, it's Loops and Threads Classic Cotton Big Ball. I like to have a word about this. And the number of factory knots I have come across in this one skein of yarn, which I still have this left. I, no joke, have probably come across no less than 6. Possibly between 6 and 9 factory knots. And I've only used a fraction of this ball. I'll be sitting there knitting along and then all of a sudden, knot. And I don't trust a factory knot. So I have to cut, tie, keep going. And I'm like, okay, there can't be any more. There's another one. Can't be any more. And another one. I don't know if they were having problems, if this just happens to be, my luck. But very frustrating when you come across a factory knot. I can see having 1 or 2 in a skeinless size because it's a fair bit of yarn, right? But that many in that short a time, that to me, there was an issue in the factory or something. But with my luck, I'm the one who got this ball of yarn. Just which works. It's very nice to work with. I will give it that. It does have its saving graces. And this is in the color Midnight. So it's a nice dark navy. Don't mind the cat hair on it. That's free. Nice dark navy. So, and as you can see here, each part of the sweater, and this isn't going to give anything away really. This is just the chart for this one part of the one section. This is chart C. There are multiple charts to do with this sweater. Someone spammed the not button, and they were going copy paste, copy paste, copy paste. So if you're looking for something to challenge yourself a little bit, this is called the Love Letter Top. And again, it's by Veronica Lindbergh from Kuda Vakika. So this is her pattern. It's a paid pattern, so I got it off her Ravelry store. But like, for those of you who are in the know, see all those baubles in that herd? Those aren't happening. So each section of the tank top has its own like knit chart and stuff. So not complicated though, really. And of course, my old lady eyes have to blow up each section. And I use Post-it notes to, I don't know what you guys do, but I use Post-it notes to keep track of the row I'm on. And you can see I've got like multiples. It's hard to see, sorry. I'm checking off multiple rows here because this is the repeat I'm doing to skip the bobble section. So that's what I'm doing there. So once it's done, I will show you the completed thing. And maybe in the description of this, I'll put the link to her page because she has a lot of nice stuff. She really does. And she also has a YouTube channel, and she does do some tutorials of some of her patterns and stuff. And very, very easy to follow. She's based out of, I want to say Sweden, but I could be wrong. But she's very nice, and she's very easy to follow, and she's got some really lovely patterns. So there was that. So I'm trying to get this finished because if this turns out really well, and especially after I wash it and block it, because with the 35% off coupon that I have that I can use every day, on yarn purchases or whatever, it's usually yarn, I might get a couple of different colors and make a couple more, because it feels good. And once I get it all done and I get to a certain point, I can try it on, just because I'm not totally sure if my modifications are going to have to adjust the fit a little bit. So we'll see about that. But sometimes you can kind of take a bit of creative, even if it's a pattern that you didn't do, once you're a little more familiar with your stitches and how things fit on you and stuff like that, you can kind of adjust. I've learned to adjust sleeves because sometimes I want them a little more tapered at the bottom. I don't want a real like balloony kind of sleeve. So I've learned how to adjust that based on my gauge and everything like that. So, because not everybody wants a big buffy sleeve. So that's that. I was working on that this week. So, and I've made a list, and you can see this is quite an extensive list of some of the things I want to bring to the channel coming forward that we can work on together and such. So some of that I'll keep as a surprise. But I was thinking, I was going through my stash because I forgot my tea. As I showed you that yarn last week of some of the stuff I bought, like the Karen Sweetie Cakes. I'm like, it's a 4 weight, but it's not a very thick 4. So I'm like, well, the Pound of Love, I keep coming back to this, the Pound of Love in white would go really well with that. Because at first I thought the gray, and I had another ball of sleet in the Pound of Love. Because whenever I buy the Pound of Love, I usually buy 2 of the same, because if I'm making a sweater or a blanket and that, typically you need 1 3/4 to 2 of one color. So then I got thinking, well, what about the gray? But it's not really the right shade of gray. So I was like, well, no. And I tend to shy away from white yarn on kids' blankets, because if they're being dragged around or, you know, they spit up on them, even though they may be machine wash and dryable, sometimes those stains are stubborn. So I was like, so then I kept going back to the white. And then I'm like, well, what about elephant gray? And I'm like, even that's not the right color gray, because it's kind of a darker gray, but it's not really it's like a blue gray. Like, can you see that? Like, it's like a blue. So it doesn't really, any of the grays I have, like even this, what one was this? Oxford gray. Well, now, see, when I hold that up, you can kind of see it's more of a blue, but it's not really blue. Like, it's a conundrum. So I keep going back to the white. And then I got thinking, well, what kind? Oh, I see a knot. That must be like a magnet for hair knots. So then I'm like, well, what am I going to make? Do I want to do ripple? Do I want to do a circular blanket, but then have it turn into a square or a rectangle? I'm like, granny square? I don't know. What do you think? Do you think I should go with the white? And I keep thinking granny square. Maybe a continuous granny square? But then I saw something too, and I don't know if you've seen this, is you have like a bigger granny square, but then you have smaller granny squares on each side and then down the sides. And then you put more bigger granny squares. So you got like mixture of sizes of granny squares. I thought that might be kind of nice. And have like a row of single crochets in the white between this and the separate granny squares. So I'm kind of noodling that around in my head. And there's I ordered some things today. I tend not to get yarn and stuff from Amazon because I can go to Michael's and use coupon. And one of the things I had said to you that I wanted to try to do was, it's a combination of quilting and crocheting. And I don't know if you've seen that. So I wanted to do something like that. So our Michael's here has brought back fabric. They had no fabric. They had discontinued the fabric a long time ago, but they've recently brought it back. And I'm like, well, I have a thought as to what I want to do. And I'm like, if I could find pre-cut squares of cotton, because you make your squares, you have little, like, I think 9x9 or 10x10 or 8x8 square that are quilts, little mini quilts all on their own. And then you do the mattress stitch in a smaller, a thinner weight yarn or multiple strands of embroidery floss, and you do around, but then you crochet a border around each of those, attaching it with the mattress stitch. And then you put your squares together. So it's a combination of quilting and a combination of crocheting. So I want to show you something. There was two things I bought off Amazon. So I got quilt batting. It was on sale. Can't be a sale. So this is a 60x60 natural cotton quilt batting for fabric. Now, I know I'm going to have to cut this. That's fine. But when I did the measurements of what sizes of stuff I would need, because if each one of my squares was 8 inches and I did 5x5, it was like 40x40, 40 or 45x40. Like, I asked ChatGPT if I wanted to make something this size and I had squares of this dimension, how much batting would I need? Because my brain was not doing. My brain thought it had the math correct, but I wasn't totally sure. So I thought, I'm going to ask. Our numbers matched. So I was like, okay. So if I get a 60 by 60, I'll have enough batting. So I ordered that today. I also ordered a 50 piece of 8 by 8 cotton floral fabric square bundle. So because I'm going to do, let me just move this a little. That's not what I wanted to move. Because I'm going to do a 5 by 5 square, I essentially need 25 squares, but I need to sandwich it, right? So I could have got like another thing of just white ones. But by the time I would have got white plus these or a 25 pack, it was cheaper to just get the 50 pack, and I will pick like the front and the back of each square. I'll try to make sure the pattern's the same, give or take. And so when it comes time for a tutorial on this, I will show you the sewing machine part of it. And if you want, and I think I'm going to do this, is once you have your square, the edges all done, I'm going to just take like a embroider a little quilting hoop and pop each one in and just do like maybe a little heart or just a little something, just a little design to give it that little extra quilting kind of thing. So I've got that on order. Once it comes, just so I can see, because I don't think it necessarily guarantees you're going to get the same fabric it shows in the picture. So I'm going to, once it comes, I'm going to go take the pajama color and see if I can find something for what I will be crocheting with. And also I'm going to check, I have a bunch of embroidery floss, but I'm thinking even a 1 weight or a 2 weight yarn, like a sock yarn or fingering, might be better for the mattress stitch around the edge, because that's what you're going to be crocheting into. And I think it's going to look really pretty. I really do. It's kind of a combination of one and the other. And I've done a quilt before, and I've done baby quilts. I enjoy it. But I think doing the squares individually are a little less intimidating, maybe, for some people if you're just new to quilting and the such. So when it comes time for that, I will, let you know what my materials are. The cat's looking to get in. So yeah, I think that's going to be fun. I really do. But let me know, back to this now, let me know, white, or should I pick a color out of this and try to match it up with something? We'll see. I may have to do a sample and just see what's what. But this week, the alphabet blanket, I may try to squeeze in one of the squares, because I have a couple squares. Where'd my loom go? I have another square. There's also this one, but I had another one. Where did it go? Please hold. I had there it is. When you have too much stuff on your desk. Oh, you're fine. And then the willow granny square. And I thought maybe even, because if I can get the willow up to be the same size as the granny squares I'm doing, I could also use this yarn to make other squares. So it would be kind of a sampler. So we'll do that. And I think all I have to really do is put the border color on. So if I did this square in even the blue solid or a combination of the colors. I think that would be really pretty to add that in, incorporate that in with the other ones. So there's that. Sunburst. So I think a nice little sampler, like put out the tutorials for each one of the squares. Actually, let me do something while I'm here. All right, you should have a shield next to you there, Aunt Harry Jones. So I got thinking that just like a nice little sample, because like there's times where I'll have tutorials for different granny squares, and I'm like, well, what am I going to do with a single granny square or 2 or 3? But if you make them all the same size, then you can make like a sampler blanket of all your stuff, and then you're not just throwing samples off to the side or gauge swatches or whatever. So that's that. I have started working on doing up a pattern and trying to figure out the size variations for just a plain knit cardigan, because just something simple that if you're learning to knit, it's going to be something that's very friendly, like beginner friendly. So because as I was saying, the yarn I got last week is more on the expensive side. But if you combine it with, like, say, a value yarn, then you can make it go a little further. You get more bang for your buck. So I want to show how you can do that, and also at the same time maybe teach you how to do just a basic cardigan. But I got to get the sizes right and stuff like that, because I'm kind of, it's not that easy. Like, I know there's times when people see patterns and stuff, you're like, oh, you know, $4 for a pattern, that seems a lot, or $10 for a pattern. That's not that expensive, because there's a ton of work that has to go in, and a ton of figuring out, a ton of, you know, practice knits, a ton of like revisions, a ton of adjustments, because you don't want to have any mistakes, and it's not that easy to just, you can't just plug it into ChatGPT and say, give me a pattern for this, because it's not going to work. It just won't. So there's some fine tuning. It's going to be one that when I have it done up, I'm going to make myself one. And that might be on, like, when we do our whips and chat on Thursdays. It could be that. We could see how it's coming along. I may ask opinions on some stuff. The thing is, when I do the initial one, I'm not using the really good yarn, because I don't want to have to be pulling that out, reknitting it, pulling it out, reknitting it, and making adjustments. I will just pick a couple of, if there's going to be color work, because I plan on having it that it's going to be plain old knit for those of you who are just learning to knit, but I will have an option to add color work. You don't have to, but the option and the pattern and design will be there. So if you are more comfortable with it, or you want to attempt it, that will be there for you to add into your sweater. It won't affect the schematic or the build of it or anything like that, or the sizing. But I will do just a basic value yarn to begin with for my test purposes. My mother tends to get a lot of my test samples too, because I'll make the smaller size ones and then do that. But now let me grab something to show you. I'm not looking for anything complicated. Like, this is a Lopi. This has a lot of color work to it. And I had to adjust the collar because the collar was very small based on the pattern. And again, this one was not my pattern. So, but as you can see, it's very pretty. And like, there's on the sleeves, and also on the bottom of the sweater. So I'm not the best at color work. I can do it, but the thing is, the trick is to keeping your floats small and neat and tidy and organized so that it doesn't catch on things. So I plan on, as I said, when I do the sweater pattern, have the option of a little bit of color work, not necessarily this because this isn't my pattern, but a little bit of color work so that if you do want to kind of spruce it up a little bit, that'll be there. So this is something I made for myself, and I don't know why, but the bottom keeps wanting to, I need to, it's still not blocked. But it turned out really nice. And again, this was made with loops and threads. Just the loops and threads soft classic. So there's that. And again, this was a paid pattern, but sometimes even just simple rows of color work, like, I don't know if you can see this one. This is another sweater. It just has a bit of color work on the sleeves, and it was a variegated color, so it kind of changed partway through. I was using up stash. So just some simple lines, not hard. And this does have some short rows for neck shaping. I was so intimidated by short rows when I first started trying them, and now I'm like, why was I intimidated? They're not hard, especially when you learn. It's called the bobby pin method, but I just use stitch markers. Makes it super easy. So that's another sweater that I've done this past year. I'm getting quite the collection of sweaters. So, and as you can tell, I had some yarn left over. So that's where that sample was coming from. So again, when I come out with the tutorial and the pattern for the sweater, I'm going to try to have it to be as simplified as possible because I don't want you to be intimidated. I want you to be able to complete the project with confidence. And again, when it comes out on Thursdays, if you have questions, or in the comments of the tutorial, if you have questions, I would be more than glad to clarify anything you have any issues with. Same with any of the patterns or any of the videos I post. Oh, it's so warm. And where my office is, or we call it the back cave, that's what it is under the home automation stuff for the lights and that. It's called the back cave. When the air conditioner is on, I'm at the very end of the house, and the air conditioner or the heat pump is at the very other end of the house. So on days that it's like almost 40 degrees out, it doesn't do much for this room. So hopefully anybody else who's got this heat wave going on, you're staying hydrated and you're staying out of the heat as best as you can, because it's dangerous. It really is. So let's see. What all were you guys making and working on this week? I seem to have been all over the place, but that happens. And other than ordering the stuff off Amazon, I did not buy any yarn. I say that now, but it's only Thursday. The week's not over. But I don't think there's anything. I have a lot of stuff here that I want to get a project up and going. Because I did find, you can kind of see down over here, there's the Frosted Petals blanket. I did find I had something partially done. It was a whip, and I have to put a stitch marker or this is going to fall apart because I don't have a hook in it. So I don't know what size hook I used. I'm thinking it was probably a 5 based on the yarn, because I think it's I don't even think that this yarn is available anymore. The Snuggly Wuggly, the Loops and Threads Snuggly Wuggly. But this is only a 3-weight yarn. It's just a baby size blanket in the crawler stitch, I believe. Pretty sure that's crawler. So anyway, it just needs a border. I totally forgot I had it, that I was working on it. It was tucked away. This is one of the victims of my hiatus from crocheting. It got put, I found it when I was still trying to find the how does yarn become not available? They sell Snuggly Wuggly at the Piggly Wiggly. Like, no joke, it was called Snuggly Wuggly. Yeah. Basically what happens is the yarn supplier, the yarn company, like this was Loops and Threads. And again, Snuggly Wuggly. See? Snuggly Wuggly. And it is a 3-weight yarn. It's not the color. They stopped making that line of yarn. They'll start something else up if it wasn't popular, or it also could potentially have been rebranded. So because I know there's some yarns that like the Michaels brand got rebranded for Loops and Threads because it was bought, like they combined. So anything like the Michaels brand is now Loops and Threads. So like if I had a color cornmeal, but it was like the Michaels brand, Craftsmart, I believe it was. Now if I go to Loops and Threads Soft Classic, I buy cornmeal. They kept the name. It's been rebranded. So sometimes, like, it may not have been popular. Could have been a reason they discontinued it. They could have replaced it with something else altogether. Or it could have been just rebranded. So potentially, because I got this not too long ago because I made another sweater out of it. But I know this was like in lavender and it was the Snuggly Wuggly. That I do remember. So that's what happens with yarn. And sometimes the part that sucks is you find something that you really like and it comes in like a multitude of colors that you really like, and it gives you lots of options for your projects. But the problem is they discontinue that line no matter how popular it is. And all of a sudden you're in the middle of a project, and this is partially the reason why they say make sure you buy enough yarn for a project when you're buying it. Well, sometimes you don't plan, or money doesn't allow you. Your budget is like, I have an extra $50 right now, but that's not going to be enough to get me all the yarn I need for the blanket. I'll just get some now, and then a few weeks from now, I'll go back and get more after I get, paid again or have extra or a better coupon or whatever. But the problem is between then and now, all of a sudden there's none there on the shelf. And you're like, well, maybe they just need to order it in. Maybe they're just waiting to restock. Once it's sold, it was gone. And the company isn't making it anymore. So all of a sudden you got a partially done project and you can't find that yarn anymore. So sometimes you even see people posting on Facebook Marketplace and that, I'm looking for 2 skeins of blah, 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 blah yarn. Does anybody have any? I'm willing to pay for shipping and yarn, because they're in the middle of a project or almost done and they can't find their yarn anymore, but they need it to finish it, or the project's just dead in the water. So I got to get a border on this thing. I don't think I have a tutorial for the crawler stitch anymore. So this just might be something that gets done and wrapped up, and I could maybe do a border tutorial for something, because I'm going to have to count stitches and see what I have. It's been so long since I've worked on this that I couldn't tell you the dimensions. I'm pretty sure it's a crawler stitch. I just don't know what my stitch counts are to maybe come up with a border that would be appropriate. I'm thinking maybe a nice shell border, maybe in white. I don't have any more of this yarn unless I can find it as a replacement. I'm pretty sure there's a Loops and Thread replacement for. Not 100% sure. But I'm pretty sure something did replace the Snuggly Wuggly. I still think it's Loops and Threads, but I think it's just renamed. So I don't know. Actually, let's just take a peek. Go to Michael's website. Just type in Snuggly Wuggly, see if anything comes up. That's a super bulky. I typed in Snuggly Wuggly and it came up with Sweet Snuggles. That's not what we're looking for. So I just asked what yarn replaced Loops and Threads Snuggly Wuggly. RIP. Loops and Threads Snuggly Wuggly, a lightweight 100% acrylic baby yarn sold at Michael's, was officially discontinued without a direct identical product line replacement. However, Michael's has introduced alternative lightweight baby lines like Loops and Threads Baby Cuddles. And there's also the Loops and Threads Soft Classic. Well, I can tell you right now, the Soft Classic doesn't even feel the same. So that is something that was officially, there you go, it was officially discontinued for not really any reason. Now, one thing I will say, there is a website that will show you yarn replace, like if you wanted this yarn, what are your options that are very similar matches, and it gives you a percentage. Do you think you can find that though? I can't find it. I'll see if I can find it, and if I can, I'll put it in a link. But it's basically a website that you type in Lion Brand Pound of Love. It will give you all other brands and the make of the yarn, or the name of the yarn, and how close in a percentage, like 80%, 85% of a match it is to the yarn you initially put in, which is kind of nice, because if it's discontinued, then it gives you substitution. Discontinue. Yarn substitution made easy. So it's yarnsub.com. So let me just see if I can show. No, I don't have that. Just a second. So yarnsub.com. I need to figure out how to add. I want to show you my screen. Window capture. Window capture. Okay. Doo-doo-doo. So yarnsub.com is the name of the website. And I know my face is covered here, but basically I put in Loops and Threads Snuggly Wuggly Baby Sport. So then what happens is it tells you the details of the yarn. Okay. and then suggested substitutions. It'll bring it. It gives you, and it'll tell you the percentage match. So ice yarns, classic DK, 99% match. And it also will say, you know, value, like dollar value, how expensive is this yarn? So sometimes like they're a little more expensive, but it gives you lots of options. Like what's another yarn we could check? Like if we said Red Heart Super Saver Ombre. Did you mean Super Saver? Blah, 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 blah. Sure. So then it tells you the variants and then different substitutions. Like the Mary Maxim Living, which 99% match. So this is a good website to use. Okay. So I'll put the link to that in the description as well. Because there's been times where I'm like, I would have a whip that I set aside, and I go back to it. And I'm like, I need one more, just because I played Yarn Chicken and I lost. And I'm like, I just need that one more skein or ball. And no. And there have been times where I've used this website and I'm like, I'll just get this. And it's actually really, really cool. It hasn't led me wrong yet. So that's a good one. That's a good website to have in your bookmarks if you're into fiber arts. Here on PEI coming up in October, we have the Fiber Arts Festival. And a lot of people, instructors and teachers, and vendors and the such, they come from all over the place. And it's a 3-day event, I believe. It's 2 or 3 days. So that's coming up. That could be interesting. I didn't go last year. I think last year was the second year for it. Anyway, it's like people who collect sports cards or Pokemon. Once they stop selling them, you have to you have to go to aftermarket to find them. And I can tell, sometimes you can find something on Amazon, and sometimes they'll sell them in packs of 2 or 3. Sometimes they're not too bad a price. They'll sell them for $20 for a pack of 3. It's not bad. But sometimes it's $50 for one skein because it's no longer available. And it's not necessarily coming directly from Amazon. It's a reseller. And you're kind of stuck because how bad do you want to finish that project? Maybe instead of a twin size blanket, you're now making a taller size blanket. It's hard to say. So, but it's getting really warm in here, folks. So stay tuned for this week. I'll be putting out the next week for the alphabet blanket. Just have to finish recording and editing it, and then I'll upload it. And I may get out one of the Granny Square tutorials that are currently not on the channel. We'll see how that goes. And then plan for next Thursday, 8 o'clock Atlantic again. We'll try to go live. Hopefully the heat will cooperate a bit better. And by then, my quilting stuff, the squares and that should be here. So that'll be interesting. Anyway, let me know in the comments what you're working on. If there's anything you'd like to see going forward on the channel. If you have any questions about anything crochet or knit related, I will try to answer them to the best of my ability, or point you in the direction to somebody who might be able to better answer it. Because I don't have all the answers. I have some. But the thing is, put your question in the chat, in the comment section, because who knows, there could be somebody else out there that has the same question. You never know. And there's no silly questions, because sometimes even the smallest thing might make the biggest difference to someone else or to yourself. It may seem simple to you, but to someone else that might make their project go that much smoother. So we're all here to share our knowledge and our enjoyment of fiber arts, whether it's crochet, knitting, or a combination of quilting and knitting, in combination quilting and crocheting. I don't know if you can combine knitting and crochet. We'll see. My brain is fried from this heat. So anyway, I want you to take care. Enjoy working on your whips, whichever that is. Let me know what you're working on. And again, any questions, if you haven't already liked and subscribed, please feel free to do so. And check out, I have some other videos on the channel that might be a bit of inspiration for you to turn around and make something else. All right, so take care, and I will see you next week, if I'm not chatting with you before then. All right, so I'll see you next week. Try to stay cool as best you can, and I'll see you next week.